Welcome back to the Tuesday edition of Morning Joe and the Pro. I'm your host today, Marco D'Angelo, sitting in for the Prez. And today, I am joined by my good friend, Ralph Michaels, Cal Sports. Congratulations. Big win last night for you in Major League Baseball. You had a rare 5% play last night, Ralph, on the Dodgers. Got the job done. Nice win for you. Congrats.
Marco, I don't start baseball right away because obviously my priorities are college basketball. And then it takes me a little while to get caught up. And I don't have a play every day, but going back to the end of last year, now 21-5, my last 26 baseball plays.
That ain't bad, my buddy. That ain't bad. All right. Well, we're here to talk not baseball, but we're here to talk about some NBA playoff action. Before we get to tonight's games, just a quick recap of last night's action. The big game that everybody was talking about, obviously, was the Houston Rockets and Golden State. I can tell you, Ralph, last night I was at Red Rock. Was playing in a poker tournament, watching the basketball games. I swear I was the only person in the room that was rooting for Houston last night. We saw I thought was incredible the way we saw the market shift yesterday in that pivotal Game 4 to tie the series up. If you remember the first two games in Golden State, and I talked about this with Dave Koken yesterday on Las Vegas Sportsline, I said everybody wanted the Rockets in those first two games. They wanted the points with the Rockets. Everybody was saying, about how last year the Rockets would have won if Chris Paul didn't get hurt and all of this. And then Golden State gets the first two games. They squeak them out, come back, that first game at home, and we know that old angle about 0-2 home teams. They pumped that line up to 3.5. And Houston got there, albeit it was overtime, but they got there. Now last night, they opened the line up at 1.5. They won and covered Game 3, and yet the market opens up 2 points less than it was in Game 3 and ended up closing as Golden State the favorite. To me, that was absolutely insane, that much of a market shift based on one game. What were your thoughts going into that?
Well, you have to remember, from 1-1 is only a move of 1 point. So it seems like a huge swing going from favorite to favorite, but it's no different than moving a team from 4 to 5 points. If the game were a 4-point line and it moved to 3 points, no big deal. But because it moved from 1-1, favorite to favorite, that's still only a one, the pick'em, yes, the pick'em counts as a point, so it's 2 points in say. But, they like having the favorite. And, as we've seen, how much money does it really take? A lot of times it's one or two big bets and a little bit of a run, and all of a sudden a lot of bookmakers move these lines on air. So as far as an influx of a huge amount of money, I don't know about that. Obviously, this series gets so much more money than everyone else. But when people had the opportunity to bet Golden State at the beginning as a dog off a loss, it just seemed too good to pass up.
Well, I agree with you on the from -1.5 to -1 the other way, that's not a big swing. But my whole point of this was I'm going back to Game 3. If you tell me the market in Game 3 was -3.5, what changed? There was no injury. Just because you're telling me that the books inflated the number that much because they were down 0-2? Well, to me, I thought Houston, because they were down 0-2, had more pressure in Game 3 than they had in Game 4. The season was on the line in Game 3. Game 4, the season wasn't on the line. Granted, they go back to Golden State at 3-1. They're in a world of hurt. But 3-0, it's done. We all know that. Pack up and make your golf reservation. So I was on Houston. I'll take the win. Got a little scary at the end. We'll see how many people jump in on Golden State back home, and you're just looking ahead to the line tomorrow night. Again, the highest number of the series, Golden State's -6 at home tomorrow night. So the market has spoken. They're going to make you pay that price if you want to take Golden State tomorrow night. But we're here about tonight, buddy. And we got two good games, both series tied 2-2. I'll start with you on this Philadelphia-Toronto game. You got Toronto at -6. We're looking at a total of around 211.5. I see a couple 211s. Ralph, how do you make this game tonight between these two?
Well, my first thought is this is the only playoff series that looks like a playoff series from 10 years ago because of the scores of the game. That and a couple of the Boston games. But, I don't know if they're playing playoff caliber defense or they just have sucked on offense. I mean, Philadelphia, 39.3%, 39.5%, 40%. They had one game where they shot 50%. Toronto, last three games, 36%, 42%, 46.1%. And that's why you look, and that's why Toronto is 8-1 to the under in the playoffs. That's why Philadelphia is 7-2 to the under in the playoffs. With all that said, and my first inclination is under. The value is gone in the under. Let's think about the series back on April 27th. First game, 223. Second game, 220. Third game, 216.5. Fourth game, 216. Fifth game, 211.5. You've lost 11.5 points of value on the under. I still think it'll go under, but I can't bet it with those type of numbers and seeing that much of a drop in 5 games, betting into that 11.5 point drop. And in fact, I'll turn it around, and they've been so bad lately. A lot of it, Embiid had the flu last time, had to take an IV, played horribly. You had Siakam played very poorly, wasn't even going to play, was hurt, missed his first 8 shots. I think they come out quick, and while I like under for the game, I think we're going to see a pretty decent score in first quarter, and I might go over in the first quarter.
Wow, look at Ralph coming a little contrarian there. To answer your first question, is it bad offense or good defense? With the Toronto Raptors, it's good defense. This is now 10 of the last 11 games they've held their opponent to 42% or less shooting. This team plays great defense, and when they added late in the season Marc Gasol, I think that was the key piece to this, getting that veteran to go along with Kawhi Leonard. This team, just because it's Toronto and because they've had so many failures in the past in the playoffs, I just don't think they get the respect that they deserve. And one other thing about Toronto, when you get to playoff time, when you get teams that, basically, you feel going in might be evenly matched, you look at different areas of the stat sheet where there's a difference. Toronto takes care of the basketball, Ralph. In this series so far, they have 41 turnovers in 4 games. The 76ers have 58 turnovers. So think about that. That's giving a good Toronto team 17 extra possessions. You're just handing them extra possessions with those turnovers. That's been one of the keys in this series for Toronto. And I know you are our master of trends and angles, the little TNA, not the TNA we like to see most of the time, but your version of the TNA, trends and angles. Here's one for you that's a league-wide stat. I know there's always a debate about whether something is to one team and, those players aren't here, this and that. The team's chemistry has changed so much over 5 years. How can you quote, a stat? Well, here's one that's league-wide. This is over the last 5 years, and it's actually going to come into play in both games today. Play against road dogs versus a division opponent who is often upset loss as a favorite to a division opponent. That is playing against Philadelphia in this one. Ralph, if you've done that blindly the last 5 years in the NBA, 25-8 against the spread. Both games today fit that same angle. And one more for you, Toronto. Now, this is a team stat. They have gotten it done when they've played their division rivals. They've owned this division at home. How about 15-3 against the spread? To me, I think Toronto gets the job done.
Can you repeat the first trend again?
Yeah, the first trend is play against road dogs versus a division opponent who is off an upset loss. Philadelphia was favorite in the last game, playing a division opponent, Toronto. They lost that game. Now they're a road dog. Doesn't matter what the line is, just being a road dog. If you go against those road dogs, you're 25-8 against the spread the last 5 years.
Okay, I can tell you, you're talking regular season and playoffs.
This stat is a got it from StatFox, so they are just saying last 5 years. So okay. I don't know if that includes playoffs as well.
I can tell you, I just took a part of that. I didn't add the division part in.
Okay.
Just blatantly, I looked it up, that's why I asked you to repeat it. If you play any away dog off a loss in the playoffs in the last 5 years, you are 40-58, 40.8%. So a good play against as well, not quite as good as your record, but a 59.2, almost 60% play against in that role. So I just wanted to see if you took the division out of it, because obviously the division when you get to the playoffs doesn't mean anything.
Right.
It's a little more familiarity. So maybe it does mean something, but just playing it blindly is a good play against as well in the playoffs.
Going over to the second game, Ralph, we're looking at Portland and Denver, and what an entertaining series this has been. How about the game, I believe it was Friday night, the 4 overtime game. You talk about an absolutely crazy game. Portland and Denver, everybody, gasping for air at the end of that one, so to speak. And, Ralph, I'm going to say to you, and this is another topic that we brought up yesterday with Dave Koken on the radio show, and I actually asked, we had Chuck Esposito from Station Casinos on with us, and I asked him, because I saw a lot of sharp people on Sunday after that 4 overtime game was coming in with the under with Portland and Denver. And I was seeing everybody saying the same thing about the game. And I'm talking about sharp people, in the industry. I'm not talking about, John Q. Public here. I'm talking about sharp handicappers. They were taking the under in the game on Sunday because they said, well, hey, after the 4 overtime game, both teams are going to want to slow things down, walk the ball up the court, save energy because of how much energy they spent on Friday night, blah, blah, blah. And, I asked Chuck if that was the case, if he did get money. And he said, yeah, they had money early from respected players. He said, but the public, obviously, because of the score on Friday night, the public come in and bet the over. But they did get sharp action on the under. And, Ralph, I don't know what your thoughts are, but I've always been a firm believer. Tired teams don't play defense, just the complete opposite. And they did get the over on Sunday night in that game. And now that sets us up tonight where you look at a total. I'm seeing 213.5. I'm seeing a couple 213s start to pop up around town. Is this total too high? Based on now they're coming back and changing venues. Last time here, they played a very low-scoring game. How do you see tonight's game?
Well, I go back and look where the value is from the beginning. And unlike the Philadelphia series where we've seen the total drop 5 straight times, this has gone back and forth. Game 1, first total was 215.5. They scored 234 points. It goes up to 219.5. That's that low-scoring game, 97-90. It drops 4.5 points down to 215. Then they score all those points. It's 215 and now 211, and then today. So, you want to talk about a line going from 1.5 to 1. I mean, think about these guys moving a total 5 points just because of one game. They don't think a team can shoot better or worse. Such an overreaction on these totals, and I think where there's value on this. I have not had a good pulse on the series. I had the opener and Denver at home, and that was it. And while I haven't had plays on the game, this is just a series I stayed away from. I don't have a good pulse on. I don't pretend to have a good pulse on. And while Lillard had a great first series and a great opening game, I mean, since the opener, he's just 24 of 63, and he's shooting only 21.7% since game 1 from three-point land. So if Lillard, I can tell you this, if you're going to bet a player prop and you're betting over on Lillard, then you're certainly betting Portland. you're betting a player prop and you're betting under on Lillard tonight, you're betting Denver. So, I am not going to have much to add to this, Marco. I think that, Denver, remember, had the second strongest home court, or maybe the strongest on the season. But, when you're playing the third game in a series there's no unfamiliarity with it. You're familiar with everything. At this point in time, is altitude an issue? I don't really know if the Denver Nuggets are better conditioned than the Portland Trail Blazers. During the regular season, they used it to their advantage, but their rest is the exact same as Portland's is as well. So, to me, it's all correlated. Lillard over, you like Portland, and you like the game over. Lillard under, you like Denver, and you like the game under.
Let's start with Lillard there. Everybody, Damian Lillard, such a great series against Oklahoma City. And then now everybody says, well, now what's wrong? Why is he not putting up the numbers he was putting up against Oklahoma City? Real simple. Denver plays defense. Oklahoma City doesn't. I don't even know if Russell Westbrook can spell defense. This is a totally different looking at the two teams. Denver can play defense. And I know you look at some of these scores and you say, it doesn't look like they're playing defense. Trust me, they play much better defense than Oklahoma City. Now, let's go and talk about the totals for a minute. If you go back through this series, the first game was high scoring. You had Denver that had to come off the San Antonio series with 1 day rest. This is a young ball club that was in a 7-game series against one of the most, you got Pop, so much tradition and history with the San Antonio Spurs, even though they're not the same team that they were a couple years ago. Still, till you knock them off, they're still better than you. Okay, that was a big win in a Game 7. Now you come in with only 1 day to prepare. They weren't totally prepared, and the game was a faster-paced game, up and down the floor a little more, and the game went over. I was all over the under in Game 2. Now, Game 3 is just an outlier. It was a 4-overtime game. Nothing you can do about that. The game was what it was. But then, as I said, when you go to the Game 4, where everybody else was coming in saying under, because they were going to walk the ball up the floor, no, they're tired. Tired teams don't play good defense. Even if you walk the ball up the floor, if you're efficient in scoring, you're going to get over the total. And that's what happened. Now we're heading back. Normal rest, no outlier of a 4-overtime game, and you're back in Denver's building where they play good defense. I like the under in this game. I think that's where the edge is. I think the public is going to see that 3 of these 4 games went over the total, and you're looking at an easier, based on some of these totals, this is a low total. I think you're going to see them wanting to bet the over. I like the under. As far as the game, going back to what we said in the last one, this is the exact same scenario. Portland was a home favorite versus a division rival. They lost. Now Denver, you fade that road dog, but I give you one more here. Go back to the under. So we've got the stat on Denver. You know why I like the under, but here's one for Denver. When Denver this year has shot back-to-back games where they've taken 90 shots or more in a game, they're 18-4 to the under in the next game. That's a pretty, potent stat there. With them, and I guess what it is that you're changing game plans. If you're putting up that many shots, got to figure maybe the coach doesn't want them playing that way, want to play a little more controlled pace, and they make a conscious effort to change the situation, and then they come back, the 18 out of 22 under the total. That's something I can't ignore, and it solidifies my thinking on the under. What do you think about that? And by the way, the average score in those games, and this includes obviously, the whole season, regular season in there as well. The average score of those games was 209 over that 22-game sample size.
Oh, I'm looking up on the database just as we speak, and it's not just Denver. Shooting 90 field goal attempts, 90 or more in a game. Since 2012, At the next game, teams are 82.99 to the under, 45.3%. So again, nothing earth-shattering that I'm going to say to you, but it's just something. Actually, now that I go back to 2014, it's 65 and 82 to the under, 44.2%. And let me take off one more year and see if it gets even better. 43.7% to the under.
Now, are you looking just one game at 90 shots or two games?
One playoff game at 90.
Okay.
So, again, it doesn't happen that much where you're going to have back-to-back games because in 6 years we've only had 100 occurrences. So, it's again, I'm just trying to. Our viewers are getting a regular season stat from you, and I'm just trying to translate it into an overall playoff stat that, yes, that same thought philosophy that gave you the record in the regular season does translate over to the postseason, and it does. So since 2015, if a team shot over 90 field goal attempts, their next game, they are 52, 67, and 3, 43% to the over, or what's that, 56.3% to the under.
Yeah, so, this is a spot, Ralph, when we look at I use numbers in handicapping. I use situational stuff. And then again, you got to look with your eyes. It's all a combination. We've been doing this a long time. There's no one thing that you're going to do blindly, but you put everything together. And you heard my take through the first 4 games of this series, where we were at and what we saw and why we saw it. And that's how I land where I land in this particular ball game. So that breaks the 2 games down about as much as we can do here, Ralph. I don't think we have any work left to do. You're going to be on Las Vegas Sports Line today. Our listeners can listen to you. Normally that's my day, but I've got a couple business meetings this afternoon, so you are sitting in for me. I appreciate that. In the Seat with Dave Koch, and you can listen to that 2 to 3 Pacific time here in Las Vegas on ESPN 1100, and you can check it out online as well. And then we always list the podcast on our Twitter account shortly after the show's done. So always great information there. And those Joe's Angles of the Day, you are the guy that does that for the show. We have a segment every day where we give a big angle, something like what we were talking about here. You dig deep into that database and find an angle for our listeners, and then we share it on the radio show. So I'm sure you're going to have something good for us today as well.
Same time, same place tomorrow, talking about tomorrow's games?
Same time, same place tomorrow. We'll talk the NBA tomorrow morning. I will talk to you tomorrow. He is Ralph Michaels off that big 5% play yesterday. You're going to have something up today, buddy? You see anything on the card you like?
I'm working. Yeah, there's a couple games that are in the mix, so I'll finish them up. And again, like I said, I don't have plays that every day, but you got to make sure you're following because 4 or 5 times a week there's a game up there, and there'll be a few more coming. But looking forward to another good MLB season.
All right, guys. I'll probably have a baseball added as well, but I do have an NBA play up already. First round of the playoffs. Pure disclosure, straight disclosure, full transparency. Can't talk this morning. I sucked. I absolutely sucked in the first round. Second round, we're getting in gear, Ralph. 67%, 6-3 so far. We did have the Rockets last night. I'm getting into the swing. We got one play tonight. We talked about 2 games and all the possible angles, over, under, favorite, dog. Which one am I going with? There's 4 possibilities. I got one of them, and I'm making it a big play. You can check that out at WagerTalk.com. For Ralph Michaels, I am Marco D'Angelo sitting in for the Prez. This is Morning Joe and the Pro. We will be back tomorrow.